Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Tanner Dykstra, who's pregnant and doesn't know it. And today, we're here to talk about The First Omen, the prequel to The Omen. Yeah, I gotta check in with my...
I gotta make some calls.
The prequel to The Omen that... we thought looked pretty good from the trailers and has gotten a surprisingly good marketing campaign with a little bit of weird stuff going on. And now we've seen it, but of course, if you have seen it and have seen Monkey Man, which also came out this weekend, recent films that came out like Godzilla x Kong or Immaculate,
Yes.
you can talk to us about those in the comments in our Discord server and like and subscribe and all that. But Tanner,
Yeah.
we have seen The First Omen, and we also watched all 4 other Omen movies in preparation, which I would say
I watched
was...
all 5. I watched
There
the
was a 5th one?
Yeah,
oh,
the remake.
I never saw the remake.
It's okay.
Oh, no.
It's okay, Tucker. It's okay. It's like The Omen.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It literally is.
Yes.
Which I would say was a little bit of a deflating experience watching those 4 movies.
Yeah.
But The First Omen, we've now seen. How do you think it stacks up?
How do I think it stacks up, Tucker? I think this is among the best of the Omen series. You know, up there with the first installment, obviously. Because this is a very good horror movie.
Yeah.
We are on a tear of very good horror movies. Well, I guess we're on the second step following Immaculate with a very...
Late Night with the Devil also good.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that one. I forgot about that one. But Late with the Devil also good. This film obviously very similar to Immaculate, and I don't know how much we want to talk about this in the review, but in terms of being its own sort of animal, it's operating in obviously now very familiar territory with creepy nun sort of story, nunsploitation as the term that's been thrown around a lot recently. But also, I think benefits from having a higher budget, having a major studio push on this thing, because some of the horror imagery is quite good. It obviously has the budget to do those things more so than Immaculate, and performances are very good in this. It's not like we're slacking on getting some stars in here, getting some really talented performances in here. It's all very good, I think.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good movie, and I think that for me, it's my favorite of the Omen series because, well, I like the Omen, and I think the idea of a young kid being the Antichrist and growing up and and figuring out the mystery across the course of the film is very compelling. I never found myself scared by of that concept, and I like Gregory Peck, but I don't know if he's the lead that I would want from a horror movie.
Sure, he's doing more of a stoic Gregory Peck thing.
He is absolutely. But this one is much more my speed. It's a modern, very focused, I think, well made cinematographically
nice.
And acting wise film. I just thought it was a really good movie. It's not remarkable in any particular way.
Okay, yeah.
But I think I really, really liked it.
Yeah.
And I think it comes back to this just being a good concept.
Yes.
Because again, I like the Omen. I like the idea of the Omen a lot more. But I think the first Omen feels like a necessary part of this story to watch what happened in that film came to be. What was the organization behind it that we heard glimpses of in the other movies that we watched, and seeing it actually happen is both very gratifying, knowing what's going to happen for the rest of this series. It's like this feels like a good use of a prequel. This is a story I want to see told. But also. But also, it feels a little bit like well-worn territory because we just watched Immaculate.
Yeah.
And that's neither movie's fault, and they're both good.
Exactly.
But they both do.
It just happened
the
to come
same
out.
thing.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. And Tucker, do we want to get to this movie's position as a prequel, or do we want to sort of get to the meat of it?
Sure. Let's talk about the meat.
Okay.
Because the prequelness doesn't really come to the last bit of it.
That's fair. That's a fair point. Spoilers for the first Omen, I guess. Just generally. Go see it. It's a good horror movie.
Yeah, it's good.
So
that's a 2 thumbs up from
two
fucking
thumbs up.
dipshit Nebert.
Which one are we? Which one's who? I don't know. Nell Tiger Free, main character of this film. Margaret.
Yes.
Margarita.
Yes, they're Italian.
Yes. She's very good in this.
She's good, yeah.
Obviously she's having to contend in the culture with Sydney Sweeney and Immaculate.
Yeah.
But I think they're both doing very different things.
Sure.
I think that she gets to be... Nell Tiger Free gets to be much more manic because she's having these visions throughout the film, whereas Sydney Sweeney is more just off-put by the events going on around her.
Yeah.
In any case, I think that Nell Tiger Free, she gets her moments to shine just like Sydney Sweeney gets at the end of Immaculate, but she gets them sort of throughout the film.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then obviously the imagery that is going on around her, the plot that is much more involved in the plot of Immaculate. I think it's a great. Is this a breakout performance for her? Is this...
She's been in other stuff, but I'd never seen her before.
Yeah, I hadn't either, but she's very, very good at this. And
definitely.
Especially in a role that has been done a lot before, in, you know, obviously this year, but in years past, where it can be easy to kind of phone it in and just be a kind of shocked semi-scream queen in a way. Yeah. She brings a lot more to the table than a lot of those performances do.
No, absolutely, and I think that it's her performance mixed with the characterization of Margaret that I think works really well. I really like the fact that this movie plays into some themes of coming of age in an interesting way, where she has been sheltered for all of her life and is now just trying to like be a little bit more exploratory in terms of putting herself out there and meeting other people, and then this sort of tension between that side of her personality and the religious side of her personality, the more conservative side, I think plays into her character very well. Yep. And we watch that sort of ebb and flow throughout the film, which is pretty distinct in terms of watching her come to terms with these things. And also, I don't really know how this plays in, but it's interesting that it's there of this like political background of people like have doing
the student protests,
protests and riots and stuff. Kind of just adds a little extra layer of tension.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly where it lands thematically, like how it ties into things.
But we can get to that. But for the story of The First Omen, Margaret shows up. Hey, she's in Rome. The priests there have been like, hey, you've been a ward of the church your entire life. Come to Rome. It's great here. Yeah. And for what reason? We'll get to that. But she sort of joins this convent. She's about to take her vows. She meets Carlita.
Yes,
she meets Carlita, who is, as we come to understand, obviously very odd, very strange, is having behavioral issues at the convent, but also, or it's also an orphanage. But also, as we come to learn, is the daughter of the devil. She is a bit of an antichrist, unto herself, if you will. And Margarita is experiencing some spooky things. She gets approached by, oh god, what's that guy's name?
Ralph Ineson?
Ralph Ineson, thank you. Who's like, hey, this little girl is the Antichrist. And she's like, nah, you're crazy, Ralph Ineson. And then she's like, wait, Ralph Ineson was right.
Yeah.
We gotta get Carlita out of there. We gotta stop this whole plot from going down. And this is where the major spoilers come in. It is revealed that the church has been sort of trying to create the Antichrist to bring people closer to the church itself, bring people closer to Jesus for giving them something to fear. Yeah. And in their attempts, Margarita is one of them. Yeah. She is an Antichrist. She is going to give birth to Damien, as we come to understand. So that's the story of The First Omen.
Yeah, and I think that's really compelling. I think the mystery behind these things is, I think it feels so backgrounded for the first chunk of this movie that I thought that the pacing was really good, because we were able to be introduced to Margaret and her situation at the convent and learn a little bit about the supporting cast before snowballing into shit's really weird. And, in a nun both sets herself on fire and hangs herself at the same time.
Yeah, it's mirroring a lot of the Omen imagery.
Yes. No, definitely. Yeah. It also, I think, does the getting killed by a pipe thing
getting killed by a pipe. Guy gets
killed by a car,
pinned against a wall by a car, kind of thing. Yeah.
And so I like that it is playing on the tropes of the Omen. I think that it doesn't feel tropey necessarily, because I think it does all these things well. Like these are quality effects, and I think they feel integrated in the story really well. But it's not like so on the nose, where I feel like this is we're just retreading ground. Just like it feels like this is what the world of the Omen is. And I appreciated it for that. But I do think that the film gains a lot of momentum when we realize that a lot of shit is going weird, and that there is this like mysterious like hidden key basement behind the thing, and
the files are down there. It's a ritual room and all this stuff. From that standpoint, I also want to shout out. We mentioned Nell Tiger-Free is a very good lead to sort of hitch the events of this film on. Bill Nighy is in this, acclaimed British actor Bill Nighy,
best actor nominee
for Living. He's very good in sort of this.
I think he is good. I think he's just doing what I've always seen Bill Nighy do.
That's fair.
It's a little bit distracting, frankly. It was kind of like what I saw Christopher Walken do in Dune 2, where I'm like, you're not really playing a character. You're just doing the Bill Nighy in every other movie. Hello, everyone.
Margarita, we're the orphanage.
Yeah, I thought he was doing himself fine.
Yeah.
But I almost think he doesn't really fit in the movie. Like
That's
Ralph
okay,
Ineson, I haven't seen enough of to
Yeah.
be like, oh, he's just doing his thing.
And he's got the fucking gravitas. His voice is like gravitas in audio form.
Yeah.
It's just booming. I was sitting in the theater being like, Jesus, they really bass boosted Ralph Ineson's voice
just what he
here.
sounds like.
It's just what he sounds like. And he's delivering these lines of like, the church is delivering the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like all that mystery. I think that it maybe is actually it takes a little bit too long to get to that.
Yeah, no, I get
because
that.
by the time the twist comes and she teams up with not only Ralph Ineson but this other
the other
priest
priest
guy
there,
that has been like in the background of a few sequences. I'm
Yep.
like, why is he along with this?
Yeah.
He actually feels very like shoehorned into like the last bit.
This is to I think a broader criticism that I have of the film. I don't feel as though the Margaret storyline and the Omen prequel storyline are super well intertwined.
Sure.
It feels like we kind of have to hit the brakes on one to start another
That's
one.
a good point. Yeah. Well, I think that's because this film does I think a really good job at hiding its own twist.
Okay.
The idea that she is the one that is going to give birth to Damien, and has been impregnated by the devil and all of this is only subtly hinted at. I actually found myself quite surprised now. In retrospect, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I found myself quite surprised when we found out that she was that she had the mark on her scalp
Yep, the mark of the beast,
and that she was going to very soon give birth because, well, there are some things that I look back like, oh, that makes sense that that's feeding into that. I wasn't really primed for that in the way that I feel like you and Abram were coming out of it. And so that twist I thought was solid. But I do agree because the twist is in my mind so sudden and not like really set up like so foregrounded in that first 2/3 of the movie. It does feel like a what? Okay, now we're doing the Omen prequel stuff.
And from that standpoint, like I said, I sort of knew that kind of twist was coming from the very beginning. Maybe because I was primed by Immaculate. Maybe because I've just seen a lot of horror movies.
I think I was opposite primed by Immaculate. I'm like, there's no way it's the same story.
There's no way it's that similar. But it was, and it is.
It was because it wouldn't have been that similar if it really was that Carlito was the one, and she was like, and Margaret was just a totally normal person involved in this.
But the thing there is like, that's not what you do with this movie.
No,
you don't give the audience the answer from the very beginning. So anyway, what I was gonna say is we don't spend a lot of time like, oh my God, Margaret's the Antichrist. I can't believe it. We go straight into it. And I did appreciate that. It's like, okay, here's the twist. We're moving forward. We're not like gonna hum and haw on this thing for a while. I want to talk about the imagery of the first Omen because I think it's very strong. We have this film is directed by Akasha Stevenson.
Sure.
And Akasha Stevenson, maybe it's for you and your production designers, your cinematographers, whoever it may be, went in on this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, another one that I'm very excited and happy that I got to see it in a theater because we had our intrepid, not exactly a horror fan, Abram Buner sitting next to us, and he was stressing out for a lot of this. There is a lot of, if you can believe it, birthing imagery in this film that goes like sort of above and beyond in its disturbing nature. So this is not for a mainstream horror movie distributed by a major studio. It's not for the faint of heart.
Well, especially from Disney Fox that doesn't do a lot of horror movies.
Exactly. And so I was really into it from that standpoint. Like they are going for it. They are using their budget. They are using the best ideal of what this imagery can be.
Yeah, and I thought that what really helped the imagery was the lighting. I thought the lighting was really good in this movie.
Really good.
There's lots of light shafts shining in with little
We got gaffers. We got gaffers up in this bitch.
And then interspliced with like these big sweeping helicopter shots of Rome that are really smooth and like I think the sound design of this is also really good. Of like,
there's a moment where because they prime you with these like establishing shots of Rome that are these smooth sort of helicopter things, but then one of the last ones you get is like this like choir of like whoa, and it's like zooming in on things. You're like, whoa, hold on, what's going on? It's really good at manipulating you and sort of ramping up the tension going into that third act.
That is definitely true. I do feel like that some of the horror moments of this are like manipulative of like,
of course,
we're just doing like a jump scare thing into crazy imagery.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No, of course.
But I do think that so much of the movie works in its quote-unquote subtlety of just building tension very naturally and having the sound design work really well. There isn't a lot of what we saw in like Blumhouse horror movies, like Something's in the Shadows. That doesn't happen very often.
There's one moment. That is when Margaret's locked in the bad room after she gets caught trying to steal the Antichrist files, essentially, where it is just a shot of the darkness. It was very akin to a film that I enjoyed and you did not enjoy, Skinamarink from early last year, where it's just darkness and you're cutting back and forth to Margaret, back to the darkness. It's not like this thing is going to come... Well, you see this figure emerge who's very, like, not really sure what that is, and you're like, oh God, is it gonna like come running at the screen? Is it gonna like right in my face? But no, it just slowly walks out of there, slowly emerges from the shadows as you get to see more and more of it, and it's really fucking effective. I love that moment.
Yeah, I think the horror in this movie is really well done.
It's really well done.
It's pretty hard to shock me with imagery.
That's fair.
I came out with this movie and everyone was like, "Oh God, this is crazy." And it was like, I've seen worse.
What about that creepy hand coming out of that woman, though?
That was cool.
That's
cool. The best. I think that's the best single image in the movie.
Yeah.
Not only is it very surprising that they show that explicit of quote unquote sexual imagery.
Hey, you see that in medical school.
Yeah,
you see that in health class.
That's true. But having the hand come out of the actively birthing
you don't do
vagina,
that in health class.
No, you don't. And it's just, I think that puppet of that, or the whatever it is that they did that with hand,
it's like the devil hand.
It's really well done, and they use it a couple times. I'm like, that's a good effect / prop, whatever.
Another if we're just listing imagery that really works, they like whenever they're having a victim to be sort of inseminated by the devil, they put this like black sheen sack over their face, and like them breathing and sucking the fabric into their mouth. I'm like, God, that fucking works.
It does work.
That's just cool.
It works really well.
So, just other cool things I like about the first Omen, when they are sort of trying to transport Margaret to get her pregnancy aborted, they get into they are crashed into by people from the church, and then we get this unbroken moment of the pregnancy sort of taking hold of Margaret, and this is all Nell Tiger's free moment to shine here. She is screaming, she is sort of writhing and rolling around. You can feel her trying to like fight the influence of what's going on, but her being like possessed by some sort of beast or demon or something. It's fucking a great moment for her. I love that one too.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually think that was my least favorite part of the movie.
Really?
Because there was nothing else but her on screen. I'm like, this is just her herking and jerking around.
That's
like
fair.
Maybe I got a little too into the weeds of the actual
just imagining
production behind
her doing that. Yeah.
But I was looking at her and she was like, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I understand conceptually. I'm like, okay, I know what's going on. But like, I think because I knew what was going on and because I was so in the weeds of like, she's just like kind of doing a jig.
I think it goes on a little bit too long.
It's very too long.
It was silent in the theater for a long bit, but as it sort of continued in like the last 10 seconds of it, I heard the couple behind us like sort of start laughing a little bit.
I was kind of laughing from the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's still like she did a good job at it. I'm not
course.
saying it wasn't like I couldn't
convincingly
portray that moment as she did. But yeah, I was like, this isn't scary. It kind of just looks dumb. And like it kind of looks like if you'd put like. It kind of looked like the start of a music video with no music.
I get you. I totally get that. Yeah.
Like you put like "Bad Guy" by Billie Eilish behind it.
We'll do that. Well, when it comes to VOD. Tucker, was there any moments of the first Omen that you really connected with? Because as we said, this movie is very good in its imagery.
I just think it's solid all around. I don't think there's any particular moments that like really stick out to me. I think you covered most of the big ones.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think that. Narratively, one of the more interesting elements of this is the fact that it kind of sets itself up for a sequel.
Yeah.
That I would like to see.
Sure.
Because I like Margaret as a character, and the idea of her being hunted down by the church for surviving and for taking not only Carlita, but the second baby.
We should talk about that too. As people who watched the entire Omen series, it does maintain the lore of the series in that Margaret does not have just Damien. She has twins.
Yes.
The twin sister of Damien, whom we see in The Omen 4.
Yes.
The Awakening.
Yeah.
Or The Reawakening?
No, I think it's Awakening.
The Awakening. Yeah. Which I was very surprised by. That we're like, okay, we're keeping the canon of the series intact. Yeah. Very interesting.
Well, the canon of the series to the point of a straight-to-TV movie that is widely maligned and no one has seen.
Yes, of course.
Pretty impressive. But what I'm saying is I would really like to see that story of her and Carlita and what's the little girl in Omen 4?
I'm trying to find that. Is it Delia? I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Delia.
And Delia.
That makes sense. Damien and
If that is
Delia.
that character, like on the run, living together,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know if they have powers or not, but like because
Delia
does in Omen 4,
Of
but
course.
it's very. I'm just interested. I'm
Yeah.
just interested, and I think that there is the potential of them creating a very unique sub area of the Omen series, which is a series, but no one knows as a series,
Of
and so
course.
I feel like this, because it feels unique, because it's very separated from those other things. We're not going to be seeing what happens to Damien later on the line because there's already been films made
we
about
know.
that.
We
This
got
feels
it.
like a good use in my mind of an IP.
Yeah.
It's a long dormant IP, frankly, that barely anyone cares about. Only the first movie really means anything. All the other ones are bad, and so reinvigorating it with something totally different that just exists in that world and can tell a totally different story,
Yeah.
and gets a budget behind it and good actors and good cinematography. This is a good new horror series.
I think so too. I also want to
If
mention
it gets sequels, which I would like to happen.
I like to have that happen too. To speak to how the prequel elements tie into the film, I didn't like this. Very easily could have been something that was like completely checked me out of the film, but I think because it's all save for the end, and I was already very dialed into the film up to this point. When they show the picture of Gregory Peck, and when he says, they gave your boy a name,
Yeah,
Damien.
Yeah, it is. It is very much a Rey Skywalker moment.
No, of course. Like I'm often one to be like, God, that was so stupid, but I didn't feel it about the first Omen. So
because I
hey,
think it's because it's a quality movie.
yeah,
And it doesn't feel like it's cashing in on those moments.
exactly.
Yeah.
Anything else about the first Omen, Tucker?
Don't think so.
Okay. Very good horror movie, not for the faint of heart or the faint of stomach for that matter. I'm gonna give this one a 7.8 out of 10.
Okay.
Oh, no, actually, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
Oh, he's changing. He's changing. He's gonna change it by
7.4.
Oh, he changed it by whole 0.4 points.
Yeah.
Fair? I'll take that old number
score?
from you and go
You take that?
7.8.
Yeah.
I really like this movie.
Yeah.
I just like horror movies, and this is a well done horror movie.
Yeah.
It, I think, suffers a little bit from the unfortunate timing of being released 2 weeks after
Yeah.
Immaculate. But again,
Which
I
is-
can't blame this movie or that movie for it. They're both good movies. They just happen to do uncannily the exact same thing.
Yeah, which is why I revised my score because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I do like Immaculate better than this, and
So do
I think I gave it a better score than
Yeah.
this, so that's why I revised.
Sure. Yeah, but this
Trying to
makes
make-
for an interesting
yeah.
double feature.
It does.
It does,
They're
yeah.
both in theaters at the same time. You can go see them back to back within. I think this movie's also a little bit too long, but that's besides the point.
Sure.
It's like a full 2 hours. Immaculate's a tight.
It is very
90
yes,
minutes,
yes,
like
yes.
88 minutes or whatever. So great stuff. Go see the first Omen. If you already seen Immaculate, go see the first Omen. If you liked it, hey, maybe you'll like this one better than Immaculate. Let us know in the comments. Actually.
Yes, and we will see you guys for more horror in the future.
True.
Oh, it stopped.
Oh.
But that was you heard that.
I did hear that. It was good.
You did heard that.
I did heard that.
That was
I
crazy.
did heard that, my good man.